Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the In the 11 podcast. I'm your host, Brendan Griffiths, and this is the show where we bring on those from the world of football, and we show you what it takes to be in the 11 at the highest possible level. This week's guest is Solomon Constant, another player who has just come off a season playing in Finland, and it was not your average season. Absolutely ripped it up. I believe the stats that I was reading, something like 23 goals in 22 games, couple that with 12 assists. I mean, no way around it. He absolutely balled out this past season with his club Sporting Christina, and it's a really kind of exciting but also stressful time as we sort of talk about this off-season period when you are trying to figure out what's next. Now, he definitely has quite the resume to go into this off-season, so it'll be fun, and we'll all be looking forward to see what happens next in his career. But it's a really fun conversation, really insightful, and again, as you'll notice of however many episodes we've done, 100 and some odd episodes, right? No two players have the same story, and Solomon is definitely an example of another kind of unique story in which to get to the professional level. And it seems as if we're only just kind of getting started. We're on the cusp of something really exciting for him. So looking forward to see what happens with his off season, and looking forward to sharing this episode with you. Do me a favor, please, before you go over and get into the nitty gritty of this episode, please leave a subscribe on the YouTube channel, or if you're listening on whatever podcast platform, do the same. Follow along so you make sure that you are first to know when any of the episodes are dropped. Without further ado, here's myself and Solomon. Solomon Constant, just back recently from a stint over in Finland, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about just your career in general, especially your time in Finland, which, as you know, we just talked a little bit about there before we started recording. A lot of goals, as I can see, so I imagine there's a lot to break down in terms of how that season was and what's kind of next for you. But yeah, man, like I said, I appreciate you coming on and looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share, my career and my story and stuff like that. And yeah, like I said, I'm an open book.
Absolutely. First question, in growing up, and I've had a couple players who have come from kind of the Midwest area and states where, to the outside world, it kind of seems like maybe soccer isn't quite as prevalent, right, as other sports. So growing up in Iowa for you, like, what was it like playing the game? And we'll start to fill in the dots, right, of how you kind of made it to this point. But I have to imagine in the beginning it was a bit of a bumpy road.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I grew up in a very small town of about 10,000 people. Definitely very very like Midwestern kind of country. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say soccer was respected much, but like from a young age, it's really all I wanted to do. So I made the decision. I think it was like my freshman year in high school. I was just like, I'm just going to do this. But I broke some records, and that was good in high school. But I definitely got more appreciation from actually being the kicker for the football team. so so
Really?
yeah, yeah, they definitely they enjoyed that more than the soccer stuff there. So I mean, but I'm kind of used to that. Like I'm used to just kind of doing my thing, and it's not really about the
Yeah.
the gratitude from other people. It's more about just kind of being the best I can be and seeing how far it can take me.
Yeah. So how does that even come about to go and join the football team? Are the seasons the same, and are you just kind of kicking on Friday nights and then going back to training, the next week with
Yeah,
the soccer team?
yeah, I had a sweet deal actually. The first, like, basically they needed a kicker and I didn't want to do it. And it was basically this the football season and the soccer season, at least in Iowa, are the same. So like in the fall we're playing
Yeah.
soccer, and we're also football is huge too. So like basically the coaches were just like, look, just come to one like training session a week, like practice some kicks and then like play on Fridays. So that's what I did. So like
Yeah.
practice was easier when I was there. So like the guys on the football team were always just like, oh yeah, come to practice today. because we don't want to have a hard practice. Because like if I went, they were just like, all right, we have to get as many kicks in as possible because he's not going to be here.
Yeah.
So that was like their easy day once all showed up.
That's hilarious. But obviously, like you said there, kind of you knew that your path was more in the game of soccer. That's where you wanted to continue to pursue. And how does it evolve? Like when does the dream sort of sprout into maybe wanting to do this at a high collegiate level or maybe even wanting to do this
Yeah,
beyond the high collegiate level?
yeah. I think I was pretty young. I mean, well, I guess maybe not that young, but I just remember when I think I was like 11 or 12 or maybe even younger than maybe like 10. My friends were like Real Madrid fans.
Hmm.
And so I ended up basically all my friends liked, we did this thing where we'd like buy the jerseys from the team. So like everybody'd have like a jersey from Real Madrid and everybody'd have a different player.
Yeah.
And of course, like Ronaldo and like Benzema were taken. So I ended up getting a Kaká jersey.
Hmm.
And Kaká actually ended up becoming like my favorite player when I was kind of growing up. So that was probably the start of it, really, where I wanted to. But the thing is, like when I was young, I just wanted to play.
Yeah.
I definitely had like that goal, especially when I specialized. Like when I was 13, 14, I decided I'm just doing this. I'm gonna try to see, where it can take me.
Hmm.
College was definitely a big thing. Like I wanted to play at a Division I school, but also I would have much rather preferred probably just to go to Europe at a young age, but I didn't really have that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, that opportunity that you speak about there, I think it's the big thing that a lot of players struggle with obtaining for themselves. And like we'll probably break down with you here, like even to get your pro opportunities, I'm sure it was not, it wasn't an easy route for you to get there, right? And so even when can you speak at all about kind of the college opportunities that maybe you had or were looking at coming out of your senior year, and what the landscape was like?
Yeah, so it's actually funny because in terms of college prospects, at least like Division I offers, I didn't really have any.
Hmm.
Probably mostly, if I'm going to be honest, it's due to grades.
Really?
I mean, apart from the fact of being from Iowa, and Iowa only has one Division I school, which is Drake. I wasn't really recruited by them. But basically, like what I did when I was younger was like, my problem was I didn't have exposure because I came from a small town in Iowa. Like if I grew up in a bigger city like Des Moines or Iowa City, I probably would have had more opportunities even there.
Hmm.
But because I didn't, I had to do a lot of stuff on my own. So like I remember I literally just made like an email template. I emailed every coach in the nation, like every single one.
Yeah.
Got back, got back probably like 20 or 30 just automatic replies. I did get invited to like a few camps. I got invited to like a camp at UNC Charlotte.
Hmm.
Um, so that was cool. And like a few other things. I did have some like D2 offers, but in the end, I ended up actually like just deciding last minute where I wanted to go. And Iowa Western was a community college like 4 hours from me.
Hmm.
And I ended up going there. And honestly, in the beginning, I didn't really want to, but those like 2 years I spent there were probably one of the best teams I played on so far. Like our team was insane.
Yeah.
We didn't even like win nationals, and we were like still like we were really good. So I'm really glad I did that.
Yeah. This is the thing that I always find funny too. And as a product of a junior college as well, and not to the same, level as an Iowa Western, it's like, I don't think people have any kind of concept of what junior college ball is
Yeah,
like. Like, because
absolutely
you,
not.
because really from the outside looking in, you think, okay, there's a school in Iowa, right? That's a community
Yeah,
college. That's not going to be. And then all of a sudden you look at the roster and you're like, wait, there's 5 kids from
yep,
Japan here, 4 from Germany, like 6 from Brazil. And then all of a sudden you watch these teams, and then too you watch the kind of alumni that come out of some of these schools. You're like, wait, hold on, like what is happening out there in the Midwest? And
yeah.
and so I'm wondering if you can kind of paint that picture for us at all of just like maybe community college soccer and but Iowa Western specifically as well.
Yeah, so I'll say this right now. Um, Iowa Western had, and if I would have known this before I transferred to a different school, because after 2 years you have to go,
Yeah.
uh, I probably would have tried to pick maybe somewhere on the same like budget line that Iowa Western had, because like our budget was ridiculous. Like how we traveled, how we trained, like we had everything. Like honestly, like in terms of like resources,
Mm-hmm.
probably had a way more amount of resources than the Division One I ended up going to.
Wow.
But yeah, so like that experience was crazy. But yeah, like I remember I was like 17, 18. I think I was like turning 18, and I ended up going to my like first session, and like these guys are good. Like they're all like really good. Like I didn't even like my first year, I didn't even really play. And I would say that was probably more of a mental thing for me because it was the
Mhm.
first time I was actually playing with people like of my physical stature, that were like, and then some of them were actually older, like some, because like a lot of
Yeah.
times you get guys that are like, 21, 22. So it's like, it was the first time I was actually playing with internationals that were like good.
Mm.
So that was definitely a bit of a culture shock. But like that time I look back at and it's like, it was really important for my career, definitely.
Yeah.
Second year I ended up, I remember actually, so my coach at the time, his name was Jordan Carver. And I remember I walked into his office after I came back. I played in Canada for like it was like USL two,
Hmm.
Victoria Highlanders. I
Okay.
played there for the summer after my freshman year, leading into my sophomore year of college, and we always have like a talk with the coach. And like I don't know how the conversation started, but basically he ended up telling me, he's like, yeah, I don't think you're ready to start yet. And usually like as a sophomore, like you're that's kind of like your thing. You kind of
Yeah.
get the benefit of the doubt. So I was just kind of like, okay. And then I ended up like not really playing in the beginning, but then there was an injury and I played like every single game after that.
Wow.
So I think it's just kind of like I've done very, very well when people have said no. That's never
Hmm.
really been a problem for me. I think getting too comfortable is probably more of a, I guess, threat to my career. So
Yeah, it
yeah.
sounds like you thrive more on the adversity than like when things are kind of, when there's a tendency to have an opportunity to be complacent, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
When things are too easy, you have to definitely you have to make them a bit more difficult for yourself. And that was actually the difference between, because I was on the same team these last 2 years. And that was the difference between last year and this year.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. But still to kind of illustrate this fact that freshman year don't really get to play as much at Iowa Western. Then you go on to have a pretty impressive sophomore year. Like a lot of kids at a junior college level, like that's not necessarily enough of a resume to go and put yourself in
Mhm.
a Division One program. And so, like for you to still be able to do that, I think speaks volumes to not only you as a player, but also kind of the environment that you're in and how well it's respected in the community in the soccer community at the Division One, Division Two level. How did the opportunity come about for you to transfer after finishing at Iowa Western?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think it really just comes down to if you put yourself in a good environment, right? Like,
Hmm.
regardless of if you play or not, you're probably setting yourself up for a better future, I would say. That also depends on your age. But for example, if you're at one of the best anything in the country for any sport or whatever, then moving on after that will probably be easier than if you're at like, a place that doesn't have, because with the best schools that you play at, like Iowa Western, there's way more connections. So like coaches are
Yeah.
connected. My coach was connected with a bunch of Division One coaches. So that was part of it. So basically, uh, being completely honest, all of our like forwards and strikers that were like ahead of me that played,
Hmm.
like ended up, getting offers and stuff like that. So it's like once they get offers, people are still trying to take players from Iowa Western, right? So like, okay, well,
Yeah.
who do you have? Like, can I see their highlight tape? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yep.
it's like I was like when I was 17, 18, I was fighting for playing time with what was it, Panama under 20 international. We were at college, like
Yeah.
we were literally, I was in my dorm room and he was away on international break in college,
Yep.
at junior college actually. So we're sitting in Iowa. We're sitting in Iowa and we're watching him play the U.S. under 20s, and he scores a goal. Like, like, and I'm just like, dude, I'm never gonna play. Like, I was like, there's that. I love him. I love him. He's one of my best friends, at least when I was there. But like, it's just like the thing is though, is like you just have to. It's really just about waiting for your time. But I
Yeah.
think networking, my coach definitely helped me out. But again, like I had, like first season, didn't do the best. Freshman, of course. and second season, like played a lot more games, and I basically set myself up to get a move to a Division One school in South Carolina, which is very big for soccer, bigger than Iowa is, of course.
Yeah.
So it was a step in the right direction for me.
Yeah. And I have to imagine too, like with you being at Iowa, and there's probably a lot of other people who experience the same thing as you, right? Maybe as a freshman coming in and they're not really playing, and then especially even now, the way that the kind of transfer portal is in college soccer, like I'm sure there were
Mm.
guys who just left. And I guess what's
Oh yeah,
your kind of take on being in a situation like that where maybe you're not playing, the
yeah.
pros and cons of staying for that next year and improving yourself, or saying, nope, I'm going somewhere else where I can, guarantee myself to get minutes.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I don't know, like I always look at it this way. I just feel like and I kind of really took this more to heart this year. I had a weird wave of like accountability this year for some reason. It must be because I like turned 25 or something, but it's just a weird thing. But I was just like the best players, regardless of where they are, even if they're the worst team in the nation in any league or division, like they do well. Like
Yeah.
they always do. Now, if you're not playing, I guess that's another thing. Because I would say there are times where it does come down to opinion, and there's not really much you can do about it. And I've been in that situation,
Yep.
so that's when I would say that you would probably need to transfer. I think if you're a freshman though, it's like it's tough though, because like if you're let's say you're a freshman at like a 4-year university and you
Hmm.
don't play your first year, you're transferring to another school but you still haven't played at all, really. So it's
Yeah.
like, are you going to have more of an advantage there? Are you going to have less? And that really, like, one thing that really just comes down to coach opinion, staff opinion. So I would encourage people definitely to try to go to a place where they know they're going to get playing time, or at least get a chance. That's
Hmm.
fair. And if you feel like your chance is completely run out and you're just not even getting a chance, then that's probably the time to transfer. But patience is a huge thing. I think
Huge.
if you're at a good university and you're a freshman and you don't really play that much, I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal. You can always, but if you're a sophomore and you start to realize, I'm not really in favor with the coach, maybe have a talk with him. That's probably the first thing you should do. I think it's tough because like the transfer portal is pretty prominent in sports now,
Hmm.
but it's like, do you really want to be going behind your coach's back? It's like it's kind of a gray area, isn't it? So that could also hurt connections too, right? Like if you go behind your coach's back, then they could put in a bad word, to another coach about that, right? So it's like it definitely is very controversial. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it, like in a lot of ways, especially now, like kind of with the way that NIL works in college sports, like in a lot of ways, college sports are just becoming, the line between college and professional is becoming, I think, more blurred and blurred as the years go on, right? Because
Oh
like
yeah.
there's so many similarities between the two. Like there's, coaches
Hmm.
are fighting for their jobs, so they get emotional if players are leaving or doing things behind their back. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot to it. So it's hard to give a one size fits all answer for somebody that's in a college program. Like for you, when you go and transfer, is it the same kind of process where you have to like reprove yourself all over again when you're going from the 2 year to the 4 year school?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think that even if a coach tells you that you're going to play every game, it doesn't really mean anything. It's you have to judge people based on their actions. So that's the biggest thing. I think that everywhere you go, like you have to prove that you should be on the pitch, right?
Hmm.
I think if you do as much as you can, you do as well as you can, then even if you're not playing, you'll still be a bit at peace. But like it's never easy not playing. I couldn't imagine playing for Real Madrid and being on a bench. Like that would eat me alive. Like of course, because at that point you have everything, but you're not playing. So it's like that's got to be tough. but
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, I mean that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah. And I know, like you mentioned a little bit, there was a kind of stark contrast or stark difference between Iowa Western and when you actually went to the Division 1 school. Like what stood out to you as some of the things that maybe were slightly a level below, or just not necessarily above or below, but just big
Mhm.
differences that you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like I don't know because it's tough because honestly, like I like our program wasn't really funded that well. Like our school didn't really have that much money,
Hmm.
so in terms of like resources, like Iowa Western definitely had more. Um, I would say we were probably a stronger team too. So it's kind of one of those things where you're just like, yeah, like you can definitely go to like a Division two, an NAIA, and have a really good team. It doesn't actually have to be a Division one. I think I always say this, but like people say they want to go to Division one school, and then they go to one. But what they really mean is like they want to go to a Division one school where you say the name, people know it's a Division one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Clemson or like Ohio State. But like when you
Yeah.
say USC Upstate, you wouldn't really know.
Yeah.
But we're definitely playing those schools, and we were getting destroyed. You know what I mean? So it was interesting because it's like, even our coaches like took that job over other jobs because it was, it had the status,
Yeah.
which, may or may have not helped out their career. I'm sure that, at some level that status of Division one soccer player probably helps me out a bit. But in terms of, you know, the differences, I would say it was a bit of a drop when I went to my Division one, which it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Like I think you made the point earlier, which I think is a good point, that there's really not, if you're playing with the best team, right? If you're playing like just best team in the country or best opportunity that you can find yourself in terms of a team, it doesn't really necessarily matter what level it is, because like you said, the best players will find a way to rise to the top. And
100%.
and there's players that have played in the NAIA who are now playing in the USL Championship or playing in USL One, and like there's players who went to JUCO and then are playing professionally in places all over the world. So like to just go, like you said, based off of that Division One or bust kind of mentality. Sure,
Mm,
at the very, very top level, the top maybe 25 to 50 schools in the country, yeah, they might truly be the best in the country. But once you
yep.
get below that, like there's a lot of parity between all different levels, all different
Yeah.
schools, Division One all the way, down to whatever levels. And so especially for those who are in seek of kind of like what your motivations were, trying to get to the professional level, I think it's
Mm,
something to really kind of evaluate and think about what's the best way to go, because I
definitely.
mean, maybe you can speak on this too, but I can't imagine necessarily that like you were thinking, all right, I'm going here and then I'm going to get drafted, like type thing. I don't know, unless that was the plan,
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty optimistic person, but the way I thought about it was like I feel like if I go to Division one school, I'd have the best chance of getting drafted, right? But in hindsight, um, yeah, I mean, I might have been a little wrong about that, but but basically, like I think that what's really going to matter more, like the question that people probably should be asking those coaches is, okay, like, am I really wanted? Am I actually going to genuinely play?
Yeah.
And then two, like, what connections do you have for my career after college? Because that's a huge thing as well. Like, I know, well, let's take Clemson, for example. I know guys that didn't get drafted that played at Clemson that ended up signing at MLS teams just because the coach knows, I mean, of course, don't get me wrong, like they got in because of a good word from the coach, and then they did a preseason with them and did well, and then
Yeah.
they're signed. But my point is without that connection, like they might have not, even gotten in if they're not getting drafted, right? So that's a that's the biggest thing I would say is like go where the connections are that you want for your career in the future versus maybe, what looks good right now. Like if you probably want to look on like people look at like the 4 years, but I
Mm.
would say like if you're trying to still play and you are going to college, then I would look at like your next 8 years, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
like look like I said, ask your coach about the connection stuff like that. I mean, of course, your coach can get fired. That happens,
Yeah.
and then there's controversy there. There's turmoil, but for the most part, like if you want to play like professionally, you probably should know like what connections your coaches will have for you. And the same thing with playing in the summer too. Like that's another thing. Like every USL two team I played for, like I had to contact myself because I didn't have a coach that had connections. So like for me, like the connections are or at least were like very, very slim. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what that comes down to.
Yeah. So what's that like then, going into post that last year, post finishing up at the 4-year school, and
Mhm.
maybe not quite having the exact connections that you're looking for to try and propel you to the next level into the pro game? Like, what's kind of the plan that you set out for yourself to go and accomplish this?
Yeah, so that's actually a funny story because I mean, I haven't really talked too much about it, but I didn't. I think I probably played less at my Division One than I did at my JUCO, and I think that was basically just kind of based off coach's opinion, which is it is what it is. Like
Yeah.
I'm not mad at them for it. It's not personal, really. Um, but I'll never forget though. I'll never forget. But but what I will say is like after my like senior, so that the fall of my senior year, like when the season was ending, like the other seniors and I, and there was like four of us because we had like a really small class for some reason. I think they all quit or something. But we were all just kind of like done with it. And then came back after winter break, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't really want to train with the team. Like I don't really want to do anything with them. So I didn't. I kind of got into music a bit, so that was fun. And then I basically went like that entire 6 months, um, well, finishing out my senior year, so I was pretty busy with that stuff. But then as well as like that, I just wasn't really playing. Like I wasn't really
Mm.
doing anything. So I went 6 months without playing, and I was thinking like, I don't know. I never really like told myself that I was gonna quit or anything like that. Like I never really like even when I've had the thought, like I was just like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Like I don't want to do that. So I never quit, but I would say I took like a break for like 6 months, and then I ended up getting a message from one of my old teammates, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this new like UPSL team is starting in Iowa or whatever. Like if you want to like come and play." And I was like, "All right, cool." So that kind of put me back in it, and then I had like a good coach as well, and I enjoyed the season. And I was just kind of like, at the end of that season, I was just kind of like, I was like, wow, like I definitely want to like keep playing, but I don't know how. And then I ended up getting a lawn mowing job with one of my friends, and I was just mowing lawns for like 7 hours a day for like 2 months straight, making like pretty good money. But I remember just like mowing for 12 hours and then wanting to like go play pickup, but I like didn't have time to do it.
Mm.
And so I kind of started getting depressed. And then I kind of came into some money, which was cool. And then I just realized I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to go for this,
Yeah.
like for real, and just like keep playing, see what I can do. And so I just emailed a bunch of agents, my highlight tape, stuff like that. And then OPSM got back to me. And since then, I mean, like I think within 2 weeks I was on my first trial. Did really well. Didn't get signed. Like, which
Mm.
is kind of the story. Like, I've had a few trials where I've done very well, I haven't gotten signed. So it's like it doesn't necessarily mean like at this point, I'm almost positive that like my worst trial I'm gonna get signed. Like that's kind of the way it's like. I'm almost like trying to do bad now, you know? But yeah, like that's the thing. Like I've been on a few different trials, and haven't gotten signed. I've gotten rejected plenty of times.
Yeah.
Which you'll find is pretty consistent with any pro. Doesn't get any easier either.
No.
So yeah, like I'm still dealing with some of the same things, but I would say mentally I'm just way stronger.
Mm. Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of important things there in that kind of segment of the story. To speak about the trial process, yeah, I would 100% agree that it's funny how many players, I've spoken to on here where they'll talk about kind of the trial where maybe they didn't really feel like it was their best they've ever played, then all of a sudden that's the one that offers them the contract. And it's like
Yeah.
you almost think to yourself like there's no rhyme or reason to it, but then as you start to do it more and more, you do realize that there's so many reasons to it, and sometimes they don't all really relate to football. Like especially when you go start trialing with teams overseas, like it can have a
Yep.
million and one different reasons why they're not picking you, whether it's
Yeah.
visa rules or foreigner rules, or they have a player who is 19 and from the country that can do what you can do, and they're just going to go with them instead. Like there's so many different things. Um, what's that first pro trial like though? The first one that you get like after the UPSL season, after kind of the 6 months break, mowing lawns constantly, and now like you're in it and here's the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean like I think you probably heard this a lot, but it's like you just don't really think about it. Like you're on a plane to somewhere and that's kind of it.
Mm.
But yeah, I was with Michigan Stars in the NISA.
Hmm.
And yeah, like came in. It's actually really interesting. Like came in, the coach was like, or not the coach, maybe the owner. No, it was the coach. Yeah, it was the coach at the time. He basically like we sat down and he's like, yeah, so like you guys are gonna trial, like all this stuff. We're looking for like USL Championship, MLS level players, and like all the guys are looking at each other and they're just like, we're not that like at all. Like so we were just like really confused. And he's definitely trying to like intimidate us a bit, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. Um, and I mean, like training starts. The thing is, you're training with a bunch of guys that have been training with each other all year, so you're already down. You're already down one, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you just kind of have to suck it up. I remember like we were getting destroyed. Like they put all the trialists on one team, and we were getting destroyed. And it's not
Wow.
even because every guy was bad. It's just you just haven't played with each other.
Yeah.
Um, but it's funny because I was there for an entire week, and it's like the first few days, guys are pretty cold to you, but you'll know if you're doing well, like when guys start being nice to you, and they start like throwing you some banter. Like that's when you kind of know that you're doing well, and that
Yeah.
they want you to like stay. So that's always nice. That's always a nice feeling. But yeah, it went pretty well. Like last day, I did really well. And the coach was like, yeah, or no, the owner. I think the owner was in charge of the signings. The owner was like, yeah, like, yeah, I really like you. And then he's like, he wanted me to come back, and I ended up coming back. And then COVID like hit, and somebody got COVID on the team, so like they had to shut everything down. And so like I ended up having to leave. And then I didn't go back there because it seemed like they were just trying to get me to like keep coming back, and I was just kind of wasting money at that point. So I was like, yeah, that's not gonna be it's not gonna be good. So sometimes you have to cut your losses. Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what the situation was. Like they've signed other players that like I know. Plenty of teams have done that, but like I said, it just comes down to opinion. It's like, what do you like? You have to go where you're wanted, especially probably more so at the professional level because like they're paying you, like they're investing a lot more in you. So you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you would be surprised at the number of players who have talked about that same idea of like
Mm.
they're on trial for a couple weeks and then it turns into like a month, 2 month, three, and all of a sudden you're kind of like, what's the situation here? Like I've been here for however long, and are we signing a contract? Am I just like a player to add for training numbers? Like kind of what is happening? What's the situation? Um,
Yeah,
what does I know too? I was reading a little bit that you kind of went and did the combine process as well with OPSM. Was that kind of
yeah,
the next step for you after Michigan Stars?
yeah. So what was I think the first one I went to was Tulsa. So since there, like my agent, like I go to their combine sometimes, depending on like if I'm in the area or whatever. But yeah, so I went to the first combine. I mean, combines are even harder than trials, arguably,
Yeah.
because like you're playing with, you know, like you're literally playing with people you don't know of various different skill levels, and anybody will be, honest when they say you play the best when you're playing with players that are better than you or as good. As long as you're the same level, you'll do better. Which I've found, like the higher levels that I've trialed at, the easier it is, just because the players are better.
Hmm.
Versus, there's another thing too is like when you go to a trial, you're playing with guys that have played with each other before, so it's a bit easier to like fit in. Versus when you're playing 11 aside with a bunch of people you don't know, um, it becomes very difficult. So it's like, how do you stand out? Like, you try to dribble the whole team? Do you not try to? You know what I mean? So it's like it's a tough one, but I think it also just it kind of comes down to luck a bit. I would say
Yeah.
it's a tough one for sure, though.
Yeah, because combine, it's like, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Like combines, like all 11 players have the mindset of trying to stand out, right? Like
Hmm.
no one's necessarily going to that and saying like, oh yeah, like I won all the games. Like yeah, that's not really necessarily what anyone's goal
Yeah,
is. That's
yeah, of
nice,
course.
but when you go into a team trial, like that's where everyone's goal is. So you have certain players that fit certain roles within the team,
Hmm.
and they know that what they do helps the team win, even if it's not assisting every single goal or scoring all the goals or whatever it may be. So it becomes such a different dynamic when you go into that combine kind of mentality with all 11 players trying to showcase and kind of show out. And then it just becomes a very difficult way to play your game, especially if you're not the type of player who does
Yeah,
that. All of a sudden, you start playing outside of yourself. What would you
yeah. I mean,
what would you kind of recommend as like your to those players that are going to combines? Like how do you manage all of that?
oh, people get selfish at combines. It's really funny. But that's the thing is like, and this is the same thing that I would say really in any facet of football, but you have to control, like wherever you are, you have to control what you can control.
Yeah.
So you can't control like, nine other guys, maybe 10 if you're the goalkeeper decides to dribble, but you can't control like those guys uh, and tell them, like to do this, do that. Like you can't really do that. They're kind of just going to do what they want. I would encourage people to just play more simple because at the end of the day, like you're going to play way better when you're playing simple. That's a huge thing. You do the simple things and then you get in the flow and then you're just taking everything as it comes. So that's kind of how it goes. I would say, simple, 2, 3 touch. That'll probably save your energy too, because when you're playing 11s with no organization, it's not the easiest fitness wise. That's another thing too. It's like it's significantly harder than playing a game with an organized team
Yeah.
because there's no accountability. Like nobody's like, oh yeah, you have to defend, you have to do this, you have to do that. Like you got guys like you got your right back just like going on holiday,
Yeah.
trying to score.
Yeah.
So the next thing, maybe you're a winger and then you're playing right back and like he's just, you know what I mean? Or whatever it may be. Your center back's going on a journey. It is what it is. Like I've seen
Yeah.
so much stuff. It's crazy. But, but yeah, like it's, like I said, you just have to control what you can. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like my personal thought on it is kind of like, sure, our combines may be the best way to get your foot in the door, with an opportunity. Perhaps not. But if you don't have anything else, like you have to build
Mm-hmm.
momentum in some way, shape, or form. So if a combine
Mm-hmm.
is the opportunity that you can start to, maybe showcase yourself, maybe get an opportunity, then you have to do it. And then maybe I wonder too for you if like also just building connections with people, in the agency that you were working with and also players that were at the event, like that probably has led to some of the next opportunities. Did you get that first opportunity going over to Finland kind of via these combines or via just the connection with the agency?
Yeah, it was pretty quick the first time I went. So I played on a different team. I played for like half a season. So it was my second season for that team that I played with in Iowa. Actually, so that was another thing is like before I get into that part, like
Mm-hmm.
teams will also like I see a lot of people that are trying to like play professionally and like and I don't knock it because I'm like I'm doing it. I'm doing that stuff. I've been in their shoes, but you have to be playing somewhere. Like you have to be on a team like for the most part because like teams are going to look at your history and where you've played, and if you have like a gap, then they're going to be like, well, what were you doing then?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing I could say. Like, even if it's just UPSL all year, like MPSL all year, or whatever it may be, like, try to play on a team because there's so many people that are trying to go pro that just aren't on a team, and it's kind of difficult. But yeah, it definitely comes down to connections. But basically, I played in the summer, so I had a different coach for this team. It was in Iowa Raptors.
Mm-hmm.
But our coach he played in La Liga, so like he was a really good coach. So I had two like summers where I had like really good coaches, and he really helped me, and our team was good. I think we ended up going to like round of 16, but our season ended like January 26th or something like that, or no, my bad, July 26th or something like that. And then I get a call from the agency, and they're like, "Yeah, do you want to go to Finland?" And I was like, "Okay." And they were like, "Yeah, can you be there like in 3 days?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I remember I was moving out of my apartment, and I was like, "Okay." So I just packed everything up, put some stuff in storage, and then I ended up flying to Finland. And so I was in Finland, and basically like this team was trying not to get relegated, and basically I just helped them not get relegated. Like they brought me in, they brought another guy in as well. But yeah, I scored like 7 goals in 10 games, or no, 10 goals in 7 games. My bad, the other way around. Actually, it's better.
Yeah.
It's 10 goals in 7. Yeah, so I had a really good a season. Finland's tough though because there's not a whole lot of money. So like if you're in another country like Sweden and you did that, you would go up like immediately. But in Finland, it's tough because with the international rules and the money situation, like I wasn't able to get a move right away. However, I did get a move to the same league for a team that paid better, so that
Mm-hmm.
was good. And then yeah, like I played there my first year, like had good stats, hit double digits in both goals and assists. It was a pretty interesting year because I was just kind of learning. Like everything was good, but like from the football side of things, like just a lot of people just didn't know what they were doing in terms of like the higher up management,
Mm.
um, and stuff like that. So it was very difficult the first year. It's almost like a paradox. It was a bit of a paradox. It was kind of like, like everything was so good, but at the same time it was like kind of bad. So that was annoying. But then I went back the next year and I was just like, all right. I had a trial last like January, so January like 28th. Another trial, like did well. And the sporting director was like, "Oh yeah, if you do well like in the game," he's really just talked about the game because we had a whole week of training, but like if you do well in the game, like we'll sign you, basically is what he was saying. I remember I got there the first week and I got like really sick. I like a headache, like fever. Couldn't even go to the first day of training. Like felt a little bit better the next day, so I went to training. Like we had some gym sessions. I was just like struggling through it.
Mm.
And then the game came and I like scored like 2 goals. I hit the like post for like a hat trick like a few times and played like the whole game. And then the guy calls me the next day and he's just kind of like, yeah, like I really liked you. Like you did way better than we thought you were gonna do, but we're just not gonna take you, basically. That's what he said. And like I was like, but like when he first called me, he was just kind of like, he was like, yeah, like we're really happy with how you did. Like we were actually really impressed and stuff like that. Like we didn't really expect it, which is kind of condescending, like
Yeah.
which is kind of annoying. But I was like, okay, I'm used to this anyway. But yeah, he's basically like, yeah, but basically he's like, oh yeah, I don't want to like ask you to stay because I don't know like if we're gonna sign you or not and all this stuff. It was a higher up decision. But I told him, I was like, well, you can just talk to my agent. And my agent was just basically, it's like, well, he scored 2 goals and he like did really well. And he's jet lagged. He was sick this week. So like you're probably not even getting the player that he actually is yet.
Yeah.
And he's just like, so like what more do you want? And so basically that ended up not working out. So I back to my old team. Um, and I was just like training there I was just getting really fit, to be honest. I was like running
Mhm.
the gym every day in the snow. It was like 2 miles, like doing workouts every day, just getting really fit, just waiting for the next opportunity to come in Finland. And there was some interest, but it just didn't really end up working out. So I played at my old team, and I was just kind of like at the beginning of the season, I was just like, look, I don't, necessarily, I'm not necessarily happy with being at the same level I was last year, but like this year, I'm not making any excuses for myself. I'm gonna control what I can, and I'm gonna, just like I'll give everything for the team while I'm here. Simple.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the turnaround, and that was how I got like 23 goals in 26 games.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and just so I make sure I'm following the timeline correctly, first opportunity that you go to in Finland is with Korsnäs, right, or something. I'm not sure it's pronounced, but that's the
yeah,
first
yeah,
team.
correct, yeah,
Okay, and
yeah. So
then
coarseness, and then Sporting Christina.
gotcha. Is like what's the adjustment first coming over to the style of football in Finland, and also just the brand new culture and living overseas and all of that? Like, is any of that play a factor into shaping the first couple of years that you've had overseas?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say like just in Europe in general, it's just more tactical. The U.S. is known for being very athletic, a lot of running. So Americans actually do pretty well when they go overseas, as long as they're tactically sound.
Mm.
So there's a lot of also there's a lot of like because you're in Europe, you have internationals who are also really good that are just playing at the level that maybe they could even play a higher level, but they're just like getting money to feed their family at this level, so they just stay. So it's like the league's it's not the highest level, but it's still like not easy. Like you can't sleep. Like you have to do your work for sure. I would
Mm.
say it might even be difficult. Like if you're a better player, it might even be more difficult to play at that level than it is at a higher level because of the disparity and skill level. So that's one
Mm.
thing. But yeah, I mean, just more tactical. A lot of teams keep possession more. You have some like academy teams that are good, that are coached very well, that are in there that have a very good playing style. So yeah, but like another thing too is like you're playing these academy teams, so that like all of them play in stadiums. So like some weeks you're playing in like a professional like sized pitch, and then some weeks you're playing in like an undersized pitch against a team that's just banging it down the channel. So it's like So it's a culture shock for sure.
Yeah.
You get more consistency at the higher levels. That's for sure. But it's like I said, like control what you can. And for me, I just controlled my attitude. I wanted to enjoy it as much as possible, and then also just I wanted to win. That was the biggest thing. So with those two things, I found a lot of success.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It is interesting that you mentioned that disparity kind of in week to week, what you could be facing, right? Like, and it's probably very true. And I know players have, like, I think even Ben Foster was talking about this, like the difference between when he went and played with Wrexham versus like in the Premier League,
Mhm.
and just like, one week you're playing on a pitch that has bumps and bobbles all over it, and
Yeah.
it's like somebody's house is in the background with their garden, and like, and then
Yeah.
fast forward to the next weekend, you're playing in a pristine stadium, and the juxtaposition of those two things is crazy, but it takes a certain level of resolve to stay focused on what your goal is, like why you're there and what you're trying to accomplish. And I saw as well, like, I mean, how was the first two seasons with Sporting Christina? Like, I know the past season it was kind of close in terms of promotion. Was that really the push for the squad in both years you were there?
Yeah, you do your research, don't you?
I tried to.
You're like the hot ones guy. He's always asking really good questions, you know? That's what you got to do. Yeah, no. I'm like that's the thing is like the first year was probably the year that we probably could have got promoted. The second year was actually more difficult, and I'll kind of get into that in a second. But yeah, we had a good team. We had Usman Shallow on our team, who he like at 19 was like on trial with Tottenham. He's like a Gambian. He was a Gambian captain for the national team, like high profile player. Played at Brøndby in Denmark. I think he's actually coaching the under 18s in Norway somewhere.
Wow.
So very high level player, and it was really cool to see him because like you can kind of see like the difference of mentality of like a very a high level player, especially like him, like a goal scorer. So he's actually he was actually known pretty well in our league. Like people were afraid of him because he played in the highest division in Finland.
Yeah.
So people were just like very afraid of him. It was hilarious. There's one this one story that I love about him. He's like the right back was like a huge fan of him and we were playing him. And the right back goes up to Oos and he's just like, oh, like I'm a big fan, like all this stuff. He's like, I watched all your games. And he was like, oh, thank you very much. And he's like talking to my friend about the story. And he's just like, yeah, he told me that. And so then I pressed him all game. I was like, he's going to be nervous. So I pressed him. And we ended up winning that game. But like, I think it's just like, but reeling it back in, like the killer instinct of this
Oh
guy
yeah.
is ridiculous. Like he just finds weaknesses and just exploits them. So especially the second year, that's what I was looking for. Like people are gonna mess up. There's gonna be mistakes. It's just when it happens, be ready for it. So that's like a huge thing. Being a goal scorer, I've had that my entire life though. Like I've always scored goals from a very young age. I've never really had a problem with that. But yeah, it's just usually you're just anticipating finding weaknesses, little things
Mm.
like that, and then just not looking for it too hard. Really, the harder you try, the harder it usually gets. But but yeah, like the first year, very very close to promotion. Like I said, there was problems with the organization. We didn't really bring in enough players to make that push because like
Mm.
it really comes down to if you have like 6 or 7 internationals and they're good, you need to supplement that with like good foreign players. And we had, or, I mean, and good net like players from Finland. And we had some good players, but the problem was is like we had a lot of injuries, so we didn't really have a whole squad a lot of the times. Like some weeks, like our squad was pretty bad, and you're only as good as your worst player sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So so I definitely learned that. So we were very very close. But at the end of the day, like the team that did win it, they're a full fledged academy. They have like a first team in the Vikasliga, which is the highest division. So like they're training, with like the highest level of pros in the country, like every day, basically. So if you look at that, it's like those are the small margins. Like if we were doing that, we would win, but like, it just wasn't really the case. So
Yeah. Yeah. Without, obviously, I don't want to put you in a, compromising situation or be too disparaging to, the club that you're just with, but just to maybe provide a little context for players who are going overseas to a new opportunity and maybe expect a certain level of professionalism, and then sometimes they get there and it doesn't quite look like that? Is there anything that you can kind of say regarding, I know you've mentioned maybe certain things with upper management, and I mean, there's definitely things I could talk about places that I've played as well, where you're just looking around
Yeah,
going,
yeah,
what's happening? But
yeah.
I don't know. You can take this however you want to. Like I said, I don't want to put you in a tough spot, but just I'm sure players out there who are trying to go to Europe for the first time maybe would look for some insight into it.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think the biggest thing is like, regardless of my experiences at whatever clubs or universities I've been at, the people that will only really understand are the people that lived it with me. So I try to be a bit more I don't know, secretive about it
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like these teams still did give me an opportunity, and like I don't want to bash them for
Yeah.
anything. It's between the club and myself, for sure. But yeah, definitely when you're going overseas, like I think this is the biggest thing. Um, the U.S. is like very good at marketing, so that's the difference. Like you see, like the USL one here, you see the USL Championship, even the MLS. Like the amount of marketing and stuff, like the money in the U.S. is ridiculous. Like if a team in the first division in Finland had the money that like a USL one team had, or some of the USL one teams, they would probably be like at least in Europa League or Champions League every year. Like that's the difference. But that's just not the case. So what I will say is it's going to be a huge culture shock because unless if you're going to like a club in a first division in like a top five league, it's not going to be very glamorous. Like they might not even have like an Instagram page, which is fine. Like that's not why you're doing it. But I think that people kind of underestimate like how like I don't want to say like poor, but like how much like less funded it
Yeah.
is at these levels that are really good. Like I know in Portugal, like there's not much money, but like you have some very very good players not getting paid anything, and like the league is tough, like in the third division,
Yeah.
even in the first division. I know. So yeah, like there's definitely a bit of a culture shock in that sense. Like I always look at it this way too. Is like if sometimes I'm fortunate that I didn't play at like a big university because I don't know, like not many players are able to actually top that experience. Like if you go, let's say you go to Clemson and then you don't get drafted to the MLS or the championship or maybe even the USL one and you have to go overseas somewhere to a lower division. Like the amount of stuff you get in comparison, like from Clemson to like let's say the club that I went to, like it would be like it would blow your mind. Like you would just be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like because you've had the best already. So it's like, how much harder is it? It's kind of the same concept of like when you're in a youth academy in England. Maybe you're with Chelsea at the under 18s, and then you don't sign for Chelsea, and you have to go on loan to like a fourth division club,
Hmm.
and it's like it's not even a fraction of what you would have normally. And also at the same time too, like people from that country are in that league, like fighting to, you know, feed their families, fighting to get promoted. Like everybody wants it. So it's not just, just like people playing anymore because of the promotion relegation. Like when you have promotion relegation, like you have just as much positive as negative. So you have that percentage to go up, whether your team goes up or you go up as a player, or you have the chance that you go down too. So
Yeah.
that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's two big things I wanted to touch on that you mentioned there. And I agree with that because even, yeah, like, I think big players that go to big schools, probably my guess is that they would really struggle like going overseas to Europe for the first time, unless, like you said, they're going to one of those kind of like big
Mm-hmm.
five, big six countries and they're playing at one of the top levels just because,
Mm-hmm.
the difference in facilities, the difference in resources, the difference in so much is drastic. But again, like I always say, you think about it, all the money that's in that school is going towards building those things like the facilities and having the training staff for you and having all these different things, having this extensive gear that they hand out to you every single year.
Yeah.
Whereas now when you go to Europe, that money's going in your pocket instead. So it's like you
Mm-hmm.
have to kind of decide which is the trade-off that you want, because
Yeah.
the reality is there's not enough money to be able to do both. Like that's just not
Yeah. No,
not physically
100%.
possible. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like it comes down to your opportunities. Like, I would, like if you have the opportunity to go to Europe at a young age, like I would do it. Like if you have the opportunity, the resources, and I mean the skill, of course, like that's the best way to go about it. But at the same time, like for example, like I'm 25. Like as you like start getting older too, like more and more people around your age group are quitting. So it's like it kind of evens out the numbers. So it's like
Yeah.
it kind of makes the fight a bit more fair. But like I said, like at our university, we didn't get any of that stuff. Like we got a decent amount of gear. Don't get me wrong. Like we got a lot of stuff that was cool, but like we didn't get that much in comparison to like a maybe like an ACC school or a big school like that. With that being said, though, our facilities were really good. Like I would say I haven't played on a team that has as good facilities yet
Hmm.
since like we had like 7 like training pitches that were like very nice for some
Mm.
reason. And then our stadium was really good. Like had a whole like grounds crew and stuff like that. So yeah, like that's the difference though. But I think that being less fortunate, like it's a lot easier to go up versus like staying there. So like as you get there at a very, very like young age, that's amazing. But like you see how hard it is for people to stay at that level. Not saying I wouldn't have wanted to do that. That would have been awesome. But it's like there's struggles on both sides that people aren't really looking at, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like I think when we spoke about that just there and also the competition piece of it, like the just difference in having a promotion and relegation and the emotions that are tied to a club when they're on the verge of promotion and they're fighting tooth and nail for it
Mm.
every week, and same thing on the flip side of that when they're just trying to desperately pick up points wherever they can. That, along with kind of what we said, that difference in when you're playing in college, yes, everyone's still trying to win, but there's not the same stakes. There's not the same punishment kind
Mm.
of waiting for you at the end of the line if you know, don't have a successful season. I think
Yeah.
it really makes you narrow in very quickly on what's your real why of why you're playing.
Mm.
Like asking yourself, why am I doing this? What is the reason why I'm playing? And those that maybe have superficial reasons for it, or it's a bit too much tied into the ego, all of a sudden, like you said, those
Yeah.
players start to drift away, and by
Yeah.
25, 26, 27, like there's not too many that are still kicking it.
Yeah. I mean, I think another thing too is like you find a lot of really good players end up dealing with burnout
Mm.
because they've like for example, like if you played every single game from the age of 8 to like what when you graduate college, like 21, 22, with all the travel and stuff, especially in the US, like a lot of the times like they've gotten to a level where they're kind of satisfied with it and they're just like, all right, I'm done, which is fine. But for me, like I haven't really gotten much of that, like at least outside satisfaction. So like in terms of playing in like a massive stadium or something like that. Like I've definitely played in front of like a few thousand fans and stuff like that. But I still feel like there's more for me to chase and more for me to go for in that sense. But also like I look at it, football's basically brought me everything that I've had in my life for the most part, like which is sounds kind of dramatic, but it is true. It's my identity. So I know that regardless of what level I end up getting to, I will be able to use my experience to further my career in football, whether it's coaching or playing or whatever it may be, or maybe it's something completely different. But you have to follow what you want to do because then that'll usually lead you to like maybe what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great piece of advice. What's the kind of, as you look towards the future and the horizon? I know you just came off of that season that
Mhm.
we just kind of broke down a little bit there. What is, I guess, the plan, or where's your sort of head at wrapping up that season?
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of just taking it easy. I've been, just nursing some injuries and stuff like that. So big off time. Getting back into it now though. But in terms of, it's kind of funny. It's almost like it's interesting being at the end of the year because I feel like there's more to do, but there isn't really because I've kind of already like when you play a whole season, you've done everything for the next season already technically, besides train or trial for the next team and sign the contract. So it's like you're always looking for more to do, but for now, like the seasons are kind of ending everywhere. So I know there was like an article posted about me in Finland. So I think some teams will probably be interested. I don't know. That'll probably be in around like January. I know that the agency's talking to some teams from there. But like I said, it could be anywhere. They said Australia too, which is a good level. They obviously can't get promoted to the A League, but
Hmm.
still a good level. And I think
Yeah.
I would almost say like at some levels Australia's level of football is probably respected a bit more than Finland if I were to come back and play in the U.S.
Mm.
The U.S. is also an option because I am American, so it really just depends on who is attracted to my profile. Um, they they definitely want me to be moving up a few levels. So we'll see. I mean, like I'm excited. It's the most exciting time for me because
Yeah.
like the off season's very tough, long days. Because it's not like I'm in the like unreal finances of top flight football, which not many of us are. So like
No.
I'm staying at my parents' place. I'm door dashing during the day,
Yeah.
but on top of that, I have to wake up like 6 a.m. to make sure I do my like gym stuff, train, all that stuff, right? So it's a lot. But the thing is, I like doing it. It's not a chore. So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, so we'll see. I mean, like there could be interest from anywhere. You really never know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm definitely ready for wherever else it takes me.
Yeah. Um, quickly, yeah, as I just actually came off of a season in Australia, I would definitely recommend checking that out because I think one thing that, or a bunch of things that I think are positive about going and playing in Australia is one of which being there's definitely opportunity to have a bit different of a financial situation in certain
Yeah,
places
yeah,
in
yeah,
Australia, which is like, you know, not necessarily the sole reason why all of us are doing this. However, it is still a job. We do still put a lot into this, like,
yeah,
and so if we
yeah,
can,
yeah.
capitalize on that a little bit more, then I think that's something worthwhile. But I think it's funny too. I also love just the nature of like we're able to still kind of say like, yeah, we've been paid to play the game, but then like we come home and I'm living in my mom's house too, and
Yeah.
like I'm like walking dogs, and I'm just like, what is
Hey,
going on?
at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of people that like live with our parents for like 3 months out of the year. That's what it comes down to. It's and they definitely feel like we're living there the entire year, and they just completely forget that you were gone for like 10 months or 8 months or whatever. So,
Yeah,
you know, and I know a lot of people deal with pressure from their parents to like quit and stuff like that. So like those are always things that can be a factor as well. It's not even just yourself. Like if you
yeah,
don't have a good support group, it's huge. But going back to the money side of things, yeah, I mean it's not about money until it is though. Like you know what I mean? Like if you get to a certain level and you're making money, then it is kind of about the money. Like you can't really lie. But the thing is that has to be earned. So
yeah,
that's like if I were to look at Saudi Arabia, do I want to go play there? I mean, not really. But the way I
exactly.
look at it, the way I look at it though is like if you get yourself to a high enough level, and let's say like you're 30 and you've played, first division in a few countries, second division, and then you make a move to Saudi Arabia, it could be for money that could be like life changing, like millions of dollars, even if it's
Yeah,
not a super high level. So it's like for me, I would say like try to get to as high a level as you can before you decide to do that. Because I know like a lot of people are like looking at it now and you can get like 4,000 a month plus a car or whatever and all this stuff. But it's like imagine if that was like 50 grand a month. Like then it would actually be like a no brainer, wouldn't
yeah,
it? With a few more years of experience. But but yeah, like the money's not really the thing. But I mean, at the same time, like for like it could be like a money move for like a year or two. Like I was talking to my agency about that too. Is like that's another thing as well. Like if you get an opportunity and you can get some money and it would be good for your profile. At the end of the day, you're still playing a year as well. Like
yeah,
you still have a team. You go into problems when you don't have a team.
exactly.
So, and that's also why it's good to be in good spirits with every team that you play at because you never know. You
Yeah,
just really never know. Like I didn't expect to go back to the same team, but I ended up enjoying it, and I think it was pretty pretty important for my career moving forward.
yeah. Yeah, and to just further that point too, the way I look at it a little bit as well is like one, you don't necessarily none of us know how long truly we're going to have to be able to play this game. Like
Hmm.
we take care of our bodies the best we can to see, but like there's unfortunate stories all around the world. So
Yeah,
like if you can capitalize on it, capitalize it. And the same thing too, like as harsh as it sounds, if I'm playing for a club and they find somebody better than me, they're gonna replace me. So like,
Yeah,
like, why can't I go and try and do the best that I can for myself, my future family, whatever. It's
yeah,
I think that, like, I don't know, maybe I've just become more of a cynic, but maybe like the sort of romanticism of like just grinding it out in the lower leagues starts to become less and less appealing as you get older.
yeah. No, I mean, like you definitely, but like I said, pressure from parents, all that stuff, injuries, like, like you never know what can happen. But the way
Yeah.
I look at it is like, I'd rather flip burgers in my 50s and chase what I want to do until I'm, 35 than vice versa. Like I have my whole life to do that other stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have a very limited time to do, anything in sports, right? It's not even like music. Like you see people, doing music till they're 40 before they get a break, but like that's not the case with uh with football. So yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Like I would definitely encourage people to just keep doing it. Like there's no reason to, quit. Like I know, like at the end of the day, like there's a lot of stuff that people complain about, and I actually had a rule for myself this year,
Mm.
and I would probably attribute that to my success as well. But just like no complaining, as harsh as it sounded, like I just tried not to complain. Like there wasn't no complaining, like, but I tried not to complain to the
Yeah.
best of my ability about my situation, and really just take accountability for it, and that helped me a lot mentally, actually. So that was a huge thing because like at the end of the day, like everybody's doing this stuff. Like I paid, like I'll do numbers, but for the trial that I went to that I didn't get signed, I paid like $1,500 for a flight, and then like I did not see that money back.
Yeah.
Like I did not get any of that back. So I took it. I took it. It is what it is. But like people are like, oh, well, this happened, that happened. I was like, yeah, well, like when you're chasing your dreams and you're doing something that's not like guaranteed, like any like most other professions, like if you become a doctor and you do all the schooling, like and you do everything right, you will become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But like with sports and maybe other like like off professions, maybe like music stuff like that, like it's not really based on like how well you do. It's more about like just who somebody taking a chance on you, all that stuff. There's so many factors. You can do amazing and still just have nothing. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's why people quit.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, and definitely it's probably a point that you made there as well. It's like there has to be, especially those who are trying to make a name for ourselves just kind of on our own. It's like you do have to be financially ready to go and do that. So like in the
Mm-hmm.
same way that you're saying, I always recommend to players, like in the same way that you say, yes, be a part of a team as often as you can, of course, but you're also going to have to do those jobs that you don't really want to do. You're going to have
Oh
to
yeah.
DoorDash, you're going to have to do this, that, and the other, because if a team calls and they say, hey, can you be here in 5 days and come and trial? And you say, I don't really have the money to do that right now. All right, click, like, see you
Yeah.
later. Like,
Yeah.
that's what it
Yeah.
is.
No, you need a support system though too, because like
Yeah.
if I didn't have the money like at all, and like I'll put myself probably in more debt before I would ask for money. I would have probably somebody that would like help me out, like if I really needed it. And that's the difference. I think that's the stuff that people don't really talk about. It's like, some people have more help than others, and that's like a not like bashing anybody, but it just is
Mm.
what it is. It's just where you come from, how you grew up, whatever it is, or the connections that you make. But I can pretty much honestly say all my very, very close friends um, fully support me. So that's the biggest thing is if that's really all that matters at the end of the day. Like they're literally all just like, yeah, just like keep doing it. Like
Yeah.
just don't stop. Like even, like they know my situation. So but yeah, a lot of sacrifices though. You
Yeah.
gotta save, you gotta but at the end of the day, like it's not gonna be my entire life like this, it's only gonna be, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 more years. We'll see how long I can keep
Exactly.
it going.
Yeah. Yeah, to kind of to sum it up here, the last question I always like to ask, it kind of has a couple parts to it, but using this theme of story when we come to speaking about a football career and your career specifically, if we kind of break down what some of the chapters are, if you were to say what the chapter is that you are in right now, or that you're writing right now, kind of how would you describe it?
A good question. The chapter I'm in right now, I would say I would say patience, to
Mm.
be honest. I would honestly say I'm probably in a harder position than I was during this season because I'm kind of in like I mean, like everything football wise is fine. It's just I haven't really been able to play because I had like an overuse injury, which is another thing. Like you get an injury, like you got to play.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice to not play, especially when you're international and they're like, you're gonna play. So I played probably a few weeks with this thing, and then it just hasn't even gotten better yet. I've been doing like basically 2 hours of rehab a day for it to get it back to where it is. So it's not even about like like can I get back? Like I will. It's not anything serious. It's just
Hmm.
it is kind of annoying, and I just have to be patient because like I will be able to get back to where I am. But you always have those fears as a player that like like it's gonna keep bothering me or whatever it is. Like I'm gonna play with this pain for like the rest of my career, like all that unjust stuff. So I would definitely say like right now is probably one of the more difficult times. It's
Mm.
like end of the season, did well. You think it gets easier, doesn't. It's
Yeah.
character building.
Yeah, because that patience applies to so many different things. Like we spoke about, the patience of waiting for your body to heal, the patience of kind of
Mm,
waiting to see where's the next opportunity going to be. And it's something that like we feel like we can all give as the best piece of advice to other people, but
mm.
sometimes it's the hardest thing to follow ourselves to actually
Oh yeah,
enact on it.
100%. It's just self advice because it's way harder to just tell yourself that and actually believe
Yeah,
it. And also, it's so hard to just not play. Like very difficult. I find it extremely difficult.
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's not the easiest task.
The hopeful future chapters that you hope to write. What's some ones that you want to be in the book?
Definitely my name on my back. That's probably the first one at least. Hope to have that. I told myself like a I wanted to be a pro at like 25 and like a second or first division. So
Mm,
we'll see if that happens. Still have like 6 months.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think the next chapter I'm writing is just kind of just enjoying it. Like that's the biggest thing. It's been like kind of my staple because if you just try to enjoy it and remember why like you're playing, like because at the end of the day you're just a kid who's having fun, then you don't really worry about stuff. Like I
Mm,
remember during the season, I would go. We'd have our team training sessions, and maybe like some of the guys and I would just be frustrated about things, and like we would just go out on off days and just like kick a ball around, not really with any intent, but like we were there, like just kind of like just to remind ourselves that we actually still like doing it.
yeah.
Like just like juggling a ball, like doing some tricks just to see if like and you're like, oh yeah, no, I still like it. So it's definitely just the situation that I'm not a fan of. So it's like, can I find the enjoyment in the darkest situations?
Mm,
And that is the challenge.
yeah. No, it's a key challenge, and it's deciphering the feeling of am I just unhappy with this situation or am I unhappy with the game? Because sometimes those two things
Mm,
can start to blend together, and you can't piece out which one is which and which one you're feeling. So it's definitely very
completely
true. I
different.
resonate with that. Um, the final part is somebody comes in and picks up the book with all the chapters written, whether it's back in Iowa or, a cafe in
Mm.
Finland or something. What do you hope after they read it? What do you hope that they say about it?
What do they? Oh, what do I hope they say about it? Ooh, these are good questions. These make you think, don't they?
Yeah, try to.
I just hope. I think it's kind of just like a staple of the person I wanted to be. Because like when I was younger, I really dealt with like mental stuff and just not believing in myself, and I still did well. So like with all of that, I still did well. So I would just hope that somebody'd read it and just think like, oh wow, like this person got to where they were because they were extremely self confident and just never stopped trying.
Hmm.
Whether that's the highest level or maybe like, but even like I would hope that at the end of the book, there's a chapter that kind of goes on to talk about like what I'm doing now, whether it's in soccer or not, but how like all of the other chapters related to where I got today. If that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah.
Or I guess in the future. So that's the thing is like these things are so important when you're going through them, but more so it's like how much better of a man am I going to be because of it when I'm like 40? That's what
Hmm.
I want them to see. How it shaped me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely can agree with that as well. I think the chapters should set up kind of, whether it's, writing kind of the sequel or a new book or whatever it may be, but how it allows you to grow in other aspects of your life is a lot of the way that I look at football as well. I say it a lot, but
Mm.
it's kind of like, can I use that as the vehicle for myself to grow?
Yeah.
Because we're constantly challenged day in and day out when it comes to this thing that we do. And I'm hoping that it will make it that much easier when we transition into whatever it is that's next.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I appreciate you very much for coming on and sharing your story. It's been a lot of fun for me, and I'm sure the people will enjoy it as well. I can't thank you enough, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really good. I appreciate it. It was good.
Yeah. All right, that's it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for this week's episode. Thank you to Solomon once again. Really cool conversation with him. Just at the end there, just kind of speaking candidly about just the landscape of this career, and it was cool to, and definitely refreshing to kind of have that conversation just about what it's really like at these levels, and some of the things that all these players go through and experience. So thank you to him for sharing his story. Thank you to all of you out there who are listening and watching and continue your support on a week in and week out basis. We greatly appreciate it. You are a major part of the reason, I should say, why we continue to do these episodes and we continue to pump out this amazing content for this community. So continue to help this community grow by subscribing on YouTube and following along whatever podcast platform you are listening to. It really, really does help the show. It really does help the channel and the community grow and reach all the people who could use, stories like this. So thank you to all of you out there who are doing that, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.